Hello there, gamers, and happy late and gay new year. Hope you're all looking back on your 2024 with positivity and nostalgia, because I'm about to ruin it. But for real, in terms of gaming, 2024 was pretty mid, not gonna lie. I didn't have a lot of stuff to be excited for. Most of the games I did enjoy were games I only discovered because of how deep into the niche stuff I am at this point. But hey, if you did have a good gaming year in 2024, shout out to you. Let me know what you liked the most in the comments. Without further ado, let's get into the garbage. Starting with everyone's favorite, totally not rigged or biased show, the Game Awards. There really isn't a lot to talk about regarding this show this time around other than some pretty interesting announcements, especially from Capcom, who announced a resurrection of both Onimusha and Okami. Sorry, Mega Man fans. The latter being a major surprise because apparently Hideki Kamiya is back working with Capcom for this one. I quite liked the first Okami, so I hope this one turns out to be good too. The other two most prominent announcements were The Witcher 4 and a new Naughty Dog game, both of which have turned the internet into a shit-flinging tard fest thanks to culture warriors. I don't know where people are getting the idea that they made Ciri look really ugly compared to before. I think she looks fairly normal and older than the previous game, which is kind of what we expect based on past games' time gaps. Right? As for the Naughty Dog game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, I personally don't think this company deserves the pedestal that they have, and that they keep being given by the Game Awards. They saved the trailer for their game right before the end of the show, as if they thought they were saving the best for last and wanted to hype everyone up for it. But the reaction has been very negative for various reasons. The biggest probably being that this game is very easily perceived as quote-unquote woke, to a point where it looks ridiculous to anyone who has an eye for such a thing. Making the main character a smug, bald chick doesn't help. The amount of disdain towards current year Naughty Dog and their lead, Neil Druckmann, also played a part. But I think the biggest problem with this trailer is the fact that it played into the biggest criticism their games have. All cinematic, no gameplay. It looks like a movie trailer. This is supposed to be for a video game, not a movie. Why should anyone look forward to this game after being shown this trailer? I could say the same with The Witcher 4. These were both shown off way too early, so expect disastrous launches until proven otherwise. There was also a weird game called Catly that was shown off, which was quickly accused of being an AI-generated game for obvious reasons based on the trailer. It was also dug up that the lead behind the game was a proponent of blockchain and NFTs in the past, but they claim they are not using generative AI or blockchain anything for this game. Yeah.
Okay, I believe you.
Oh yeah, Borderlands 4 was also announced. Nobody seems to care though. Another weird moment from the Game Awards was a new arbitrary award that they seemingly made up called the Game Changer, which was awarded to someone called Amir Satvat for helping laid-off developers get new jobs. It didn't take long to discover that he actually works with Tencent, a giant Chinese company that has its fingers in many pies across the industry. And we have an interesting story about Tencent for the next RNG, so stay tuned for that. So it's difficult to actually trust this guy or anything that he's doing. As you can see from this article, cherry-picking the most brain-dead out of his critics and labeling the entirety of it as hate tells me that they are just trying to protect him for some reason. The biggest concern right now, and take all of this with a massive grain of salt, is that he actually works in IP acquisition for Tencent, according to his profile, by getting employees into positions where they are incompetent to actually weaken those companies and make them ripe for acquisition. Sounds crazy, and there's a few details that point to this not being true, such as the fact that he started doing all this before he started working with Tencent, but it's yet another example where these figureheads in the industry are not telling us the entire truth. As always, and nothing they can say can be taken at face value. Hey, Future Chow here. I'm nearing the end of editing this video when I realized I forgot to mention Astrobot won Game of the Year. Just shows how much I give a shit about this show. Future Chow out. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the thing in the title you may be wondering about.
Xenogears.
To be honest, this is barely newsworthy, but it's something we need to at least keep our peripheral vision on. Since the election results in November turned out the way it did, some culture warrior tards on the right think they are now in a position where they can exert their will onto others. So what started this? It was this tweet asking the question, is this what gamers want? With a video of a female character from The First Descendant shaking her ass at the camera. The answer should be really simple in my opinion. If it fits the direction, tone, and or aesthetic of the game, or if the creators simply want to do it, then yeah, go for it. In the realm of fiction, you should be allowed to make anything you want. End of discussion. But some people on the right seem to have pulled their mask off completely in reply to this tweet, with the main offenders being Dread Roberts, Melanie Mack, John Dela Rose, and John F. Trent. Prior to this, these content creators were very eager to defend the existence of the game's Stellar Blade, a game which undeniably markets itself with the attractiveness of their very lightly clothed female main character. Gooner bait, you could say. But somehow, this is suddenly bad. Now of all times. Despite them defending it throughout pretty much the entirety of 2024, and probably prior to that too. Yeah, we're going back to the 80s and 90s again with a resurgence of hypocritical puritanism, I guess, where all the religious nutjob would-be tyrants are out to censor everything they don't like for the sake of the children, because they are all terrible parents and can't do it themselves. You are no different than the quote-unquote woke neo-Puritans we've had to put up with the past decade. Just like them, you intentionally miss the point. Censorship, the act, is what we're against. I don't care how offensive, degenerate, or immoral you think this fictional content is. You have no right to tell people what to do. That's the point. Fuck off.
I would feel so sorry for his children because the nigga literally serves no fucking purpose.
On a related note, let's talk about a certain game that came out last month that's been extremely successful, much to my dismay. Marvel Rivals. Really, I'm just being petty since I hate Marvel and live service games and NetEase and games made from China in general. But why is this related to the previous topic, you may ask? Just take a look at the character art and compare it to anything that has come out from the Western mainstream in the past 2 years. It also turns out that the developers of Marvel Rivals, well, they knew. I guess the Gooners won this one, and China. But the lesson here is simple. Just make your characters and your game look good, and people will be interested. First impressions are important after all. On a different related note, another game that had a super successful launch last month was Infinity Nikki because, well, I mean, just look at it. God, it's so adorable. I want to play this so fucking bad. But I don't want kernel level malware on my PC and I don't have a PS5. Yeah, I know it's a Chinese game, but I got away with playing Genshin and giving them zero money on my PS4. I can do the same with this one if I ever get a PS5. And by the way, most of the game's revenue came from China after all, since that's where the largest fan base is. But it's just another example of, just make good stuff, and people will buy it, Western devs. And apparently that did happen last month with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. A lot of people, myself included, said this looked like insufferable, boring Hollywood slop before it came out.
Choo-choo! Choo-choo! Ha 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 ha!
I even put it on my worst list of the top 10 games shown off at the June summer showcases. But apparently this game is not what people were expecting. It's not an Uncharted or Tomb Raider clone. It's not quite a cinematic game that's 90% cutscenes either. It's more of a first-person immersive sim that actually captures the feel of classic Indiana Jones, allegedly, and surprised a lot of people, so hats off to them. Moving on to an unsuccess story, we have Ubisoft. Once again, they just can't seem to stay out of the bad news column no matter what. This company needs to die. It's for the best at this point. Now, why did I bring them up again this time? Oh yeah, X-Defiant, that game we all forgot about since Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was closer to launch. It's shutting down soon.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Apparently, this game had some potential, but Ubisoft being Ubisoft couldn't get it to a state where people would stick around. Oh, and they are closing their San Francisco studio.
I'm shocked.
More recent speculation says that Ubisoft is pretty much riding on Assassin's Creed Shadow's success in February, and if that game flops, they're done for. Wouldn't surprise me. Future Chow here again. Since this video is so damn late, we already have an update on this. It's actually coming out in March now, not February. That is all. On to some quick hits. We all know 2024 was the year of layoffs for the video game industry, and so was 2023 to a lesser extent, to the point where it has its own Wikipedia page. Yeah, Wikipedia as a source, yada yada, but we all know this is true already anyway. January 2024 was the harshest of them by a long shot. This will probably continue into 2025. We'll see if it lasts all year this time as well, or slows down, but we'll probably see a lot during the beginning of the year, given Ubisoft's trajectory at least. itch.io, a website for indie published games, was temporarily taken down by Funko Pop? Apparently some AI software protection Funko uses called Brand Shield caused it to automatically report the site for fraud and phishing due to people creating a fan page of the Funko Fusion game on the website. This only lasted a few hours before it was brought back online, but it was still a random and kind of funny story, and another example of AI being a nuisance. More on the Visa censorship issue from last month, they recently admitted they do this to protect their brand, which we all know is bullshit. Literally nobody put any of the blame for the controversial content these companies sell on you. All you've done is harm and interfere with businesses that were 100% legal. I don't like the idea of these credit card companies having control over the market, and they will no doubt use the excuse of protecting their brand from stuff like Lolicon to make that a reality. War Thunder. I just have to say the name of the game and you already know what fucking happened. Never change, War Thunder bros. So the Sony Kadokawa merger isn't happening, but Sony has bought into 10% of Kadokawa's stock, making them a majority shareholder. Crisis somewhat averted, I guess? I suppose this could finally mean a greater chance of a Bloodborne remaster or sequel or whatever happening? We'll talk about that a bit later, actually, but don't expect much to change from this overall. GOG stands up to Blizzard and takes a W for the sake of game preservation. Oh, I guess this can be a small segment of let's all laugh at Activision Blizzard again. Or rather, let's spit at Blizzard because they wanted to delist their games and remove them from GOG entirely, which is pointless if you think about it. Any game on GOG is DRM free, so it's easily piratable, and delisting them from the store will do nothing except remove them from the hands of legal purchasers. But GOG stood on their recent commitment to preservation, and players who bought it will still receive support for it even after it's delisted. Stuff like this is why I buy games from there before Steam when I can. If you want more details, you can also check out Sid Alpha's video on the subject. On the other hand, while we're on the topic of GOG, it's time for Last Month in Localization.
Apply the sacred ointment, Popo.
Now, if you're aware of the company East Asia Soft, they have been a key player in bringing some niche Japanese games back from obscurity and releasing them in a complete state without any censorship. Well, last month they released Tokyo Clan Pool, which is the latest of these types of games. Now, this game got rejected on Steam, so it was instead released only on GOG and the Nintendo Switch. Unfortunately, they lied by omission on this game and actually removed content from it without telling anyone beforehand, with no announcement of a decensor patch or anything like that for PC. I couldn't find their justification for removing this content anywhere, so if you know anything, feel free to post it in the comments, but if I had to take a guess, I don't think it's GOG's fault, or even East Asia Soft's fault. I think it was Nintendo. Which leads into the next story. The Neptunia Rebirth Collection was cancelled entirely for Nintendo Switch in the West. Unlike the previous story, they actually gave a reason, that being something about the game went against Nintendo's guidelines. We don't know exactly what it is that's in conflict here, but this is strictly the Western branches of Nintendo that are enforcing this. The game is still coming to Switch in Japan. But we may have an idea of what they are cracking down on all of a sudden, because for the new Neptunia Riders vs. Dogus game, the swimsuit costumes will not be available for Switch, but will be available on PlayStation. Are we seeing a reversal of roles here yet again? Suddenly Nintendo is cracking down on fan service more than PlayStation? Does this have something to do with the launch of the next system? Who knows. It sucks though. We got more news about the Trails in the Sky remake, the main thing being that this game will be the first new Falcom game in a while not published by NISA. Instead, it will be published by Gung Ho Entertainment, who I've never heard of before, and will launch simultaneously worldwide for the first time in series history. Not only that, the PC port will be handled in-house rather than by PH3, a Western company who handled previous ports. So, some people, specifically the anti-localizer crowd, are celebrating this, but you guys gotta wait and see. They have zero track record for this, so it could be a disaster. We don't know if they'll be utilizing that AI tool that Kondo was looking at a few months ago either, which could also be a disaster. Wait and see. Don't pre-order. You know the drill. Unrelated, but since this is being marketed with Nintendo the most, can Estelle or Adel be in the next Smash, please? Just asking. That's about it for official localization and Western game industry fuckery stories. On the other hand, we have a nice little fan translation that dropped recently, Tales of Rebirth, a long-awaited game that never got a Western release, so if you ever wanted to play that, now's the best time to do so. Now, on to the worst take of the month.
I know. Just hear me out.
No, I don't think I will. But before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to all the brain-dead fanboys who decided to console war on the holidays. Even on Christmas fucking morning. Granted, this was expected behavior. They do this every year, especially the saltiest of ponies on the X-Twatter. Special shout out and worst take honorable mention to that generic Eric who says this shit.
To the Sony stables, happy holidays, Merry Xmas, and whatever else you celebrate. Xbox, go fuck yourselves. PC Master Race, go fuck yourselves. Nintendrones, go fuck yourselves. And for the love of God, leave the children alone.
I'm frustrated that the human race is doomed.
Wow. Do you really have nothing better to do on Christmas Day, dude? I mean, you probably got no games. I don't know why. In case you missed it a while back, we roasted Greg Miller for calling all PC Master Racers pedos. I guess it's Nintendo fanboys' turn for whatever reason. Also, shout out to this IGN article. Holy shit, it's really bad, but subjective, so whatever. Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
Bloodborne.
The reason why I've featured this video as worst take of the month is a bit more complicated. Basically what Jess here talks about in this video is how Bloodborne is just fine at 30 FPS and doesn't need to be remastered or updated or anything. Should just be left as is because it's a masterpiece as is. If you know anything about gaming, I probably don't need to explain to you why 60 FPS is objectively better for literally any action-based game ever. But if you still want to think that you like 30 FPS more for whatever game, fine, you do you. Here's the real problem I have with this video though. No offense to Jess, but she comes off as a very safe content creator. One that game developers and publishers may actually listen to or take into consideration. Meaning that the elusive 60 FPS Bloodborne remaster or even just a simple patch on PS5 that so many fans actually want is now less likely to happen. Why would you put that energy out there? Even in the video you say that having a 60 FPS toggle option would be fine, right? So why even make this video? Leave it to fanboys, and fangirls, of Sony games to actively advocate for having less. Couldn't be me. You guys have such low standards, it's baffling. Also, Jess, what the hell is this?
Lance McDonald's 60 FPS mod is a real tangible thing on jailbroken PlayStations. Not that I'd know anything about that.
Anyway, moving on to the usual last segment, showcases. And we got quite a few of them this time. Like always, you can find links to these in the description. The OTK Winter Games Expo on December 4th. The PC Gaming Show Most Wanted on December 5th. The Indie Live Expo on December 7th. The PQube Asia Showcase 2024 on the 11th. Day of the Devs 2024, the Game Awards edition on the 11th. The Game Awards on the 12th. Indie Game Awards hosted by 6-1 on the 19th. I don't know how credible this awards show is, but it's another one that occurs too early. January, fuckers.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
With all that out of the way, time to move on to the meat of the show, the releases. And I'm going to start limiting the amount of new games I feature here because holy shit, this part takes way too much time to get through every month. I'm going to set a hard limit of 50 games for this segment, which is still a lot, so don't worry. I probably won't miss most of the important ones. And I'm probably going to limit the amount of action roguelite deck builders, and horror games because there's so many of these each month that are very similar to each other. And I doubt you guys watching this actually look into those anyway, so I'll just pick out the ones that look the best to me. Fortunately, December is a lighter month, especially towards the end, so I won't have to do that much. Though that could just mean I'm missing a bunch of them. Sound off in the comments if you have any feedback for this segment too. Anyway, let's get started. First, we have ANTONBLAST on December 3rd, a crazy 2D platformer reminiscent of Wario Land. Remember, if Nintendo refuses to make what you want, which is something they're very good at, take your money elsewhere. Diesel Legacy: The Brazen Age on December 3rd, a 2v2 fighting game set in a steampunk-style universe. Blow some steam out your ass or your opponents. Abyss Seeker: What Do You See Deep in the Abyss on December 4th, a waifu twin-stick shooter action roguelite, similar to another game that came out earlier in 2024, and you can get them bundled if you want. Edge of Allegoria on December 4th, an old-school Game Boy-style RPG thing with all sorts of silly, ironic millennial writing. Probably still better than Yick. Entropy Survivors on December 4th, a bullet hell roguelike. You know the drill. Vampire Survivors, but not. Caves of Kood came out of early access on December 5th, a very old-school style roguelite that randomly generates pretty much everything, even the story, I think. Fantasian Neo Dimension on December 5th, a throwback JRPG reminiscent of the late 90s Final Fantasy that was released on mobile in Japan a while back. Unfortunately, some of the dialogue has been censored from the original, and it has de nouveau. Nikoderiko on December 5th, a cartoony 2.5D platformer clearly inspired by Crash Bandicoot. Unfortunately, it also has de nouveau. Railroads Online came out of early access on December 5th. Rejoice, Tism Bros, and create railroad systems to your heart's content in this open-world train simulator. Skydance's Behemoth on December 5th, a VR-only fantasy title where you fight against giant bosses. Maybe it makes getting squished in video games more terrifying. Symphonia on December 5th, a precision platformer with an emphasis on music. Not related to Tales of Symphonia at all. The Thing Remastered on December 5th, a remaster of the 6th gen The Thing game, so if you ever missed out on this allegedly not bad licensed game, there you go. Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop on December 5th, a game where you play as a doge who fixes machines. It's also a roguelite somehow. Dogman Mission Impossible on December 6th. If you have kids, this looks like a decent platformer you could play with them. Tower of Mask on December 7th, a creepy horror dungeon crawler inspired by those old school 80s and 90s PC games. Among Ashes on December 9th. No, not Among Us. Among Ashes, a first-person psychological horror game. Undead West on December 9th, another bullet hell roguelite with zombies and a lot of whiskey, I guess. Go Home Annie on December 10th, another psychological horror game, this time set in the SCP universe, so you know it's gonna be weird. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered on December 10th, a remake of the cult classic series from the PS1 era, made by the same devs that worked on the Tomb Raider trilogy. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind on December 10th, a classic beat-em-up featuring your nostalgic Power Rangers series from the 90s. People seem to think it's pretty mid though. Me-Side on December 10th, a waifu care simulator thing with horror elements. Yeah, this one's been getting a lot of traction lately for obvious reasons. Fairy Tail 2 on December 11th, another one of those spectacle fighter games based on the Fairy Tail anime. There are claims it's been censored once again though. Koei Tecmo.
It's time to stop!
Murky Divers came out of early access on December 12th. Another horror game. What is this, October? Anyway, this one's an underwater one, so it's at least 3 times more terrifying, right? And it has co-op. Spirit of the Samurai on December 12th. A Japanese-themed Metroidvania that uses stop-motion animation? I'm not sure how I feel about that. Awaria on December 16th. A new game made by the Helltaker developer. Short, sweet, and free. Go get it now. Or else. Neko Odyssey on December 16th, a casual game where you take pictures of cats. Seems mid so far, but it might get better. After all, who wouldn't like taking pictures of cats? On Your Tail on December 16th, a furry life sim game. See? I cater to all audiences here on this channel. Very inclusive. Thank me. Flint, Treasure of Oblivion on December 17th, a pirate-themed tactics game with magical treasure. It's definitely not a trap. Pennyblood Hellbound on December 17th, an action roguelite that's a prequel, spin-off, both, to the upcoming Pennyblood game, which is a successor to Shadow Hearts. Corrupt on December 19th, a fighting game. Yeah, that's all I got. I'm bad at these. Tokyo Clanpool on December 20th. We talked about it earlier. My recommendation with this one is to wait. Put it on your wishlist if you want. Keep an eye on it until they release the decensor patch. If they even do that. Mince Hints 2 on December 21st, a sequel to Mince Hints, a mildly creepy puzzle game. Cool thing about this one is the first game is free. Go try it out if it tickles your fancy. And that'll wrap up this episode of Random News of Gaming. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I didn't.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
If you want a place to easily find almost every game in my release segments, you can always follow my Steam curator. I keep track of everything covered in this channel in one convenient place. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this garbage, or a dislike if you still think 30 FPS is okay. Leave a comment on what you think about any of this madness, subscribe for more irregular content from me, share the video around to whoever you think will enjoy it, check out my other content such as my top 10s, including my top 10 moments in The Legend of Zelda that you literally can't find via YouTube search. Thanks, YouTube. Catch me live streaming on Smash every Monday or whatever else I decide to randomly stream, and stay tuned on my next upcoming project, my top 10 video game music covers. Catch my content on Rumble or Odyssey if you want. Follow me on the X-Twitter if you want your feed filled with nothing, actually. Join my Discord server if you want to badger me for no reason whatsoever. And as always with this floppy fish of an industry, have high standards, low expectations.